Okay, here we are. TJ, thank you so much for just allowing me to interview you. I'm excited because I haven't seen you in a while, one of them. And let me read your bio, though. Let me start off with that to say who in the world TJ is. So, TJ is the president of UnCommen and CEO of Studio 490 Digital Marketing. TJ has been involved in men's ministry for over 25 years, leading small groups, rec leagues, and nonprofits, and has been the leader of UnCommen for more than 7 years. He's been married to his junior high sweetheart for over 34 years, who I also think is amazing, and has two sons who are active in ministry as well. TJ has a heart for people and wants to see men become the husbands, dads, and leaders they were always meant to be. So that's a little bit about you. The other thing, TJ, we have in common is that we're both are from Louisiana. So that's
Nola proud. I took everything I had not to wear something Nola. I mean, but I did love.
Did you?
You know what I'm saying? It's never far from me. We just had a friend send us a king cake from Nona Randazzo's, and holy cow.
Really? Oh man, they have some places you can get them out here. Anyway, some places I never grab them, but that's awesome. TJ, I love that. I feel like we've connected on food and all that, and I've had the pleasure of working with you, and I feel like everything just in your bio and really honestly, TJ, just every day I've worked with you, I feel like you had a heart for people. You've always been upbeat, always make me smile. And so I think that's you, and might be a little bit of the Nola inside of you too. But thank you for doing this interview with me. I think people should know about you and know what you're doing with UnCommen. So I want to start here. I did say a little bit about your bio, but talk about a little bit about you and what got you to the point of wanting to work with men in the capacity that you do. And we'll talk about UnCommen specifically, but I kind of want to know a little bit about your journey of getting here.
Sure. I didn't come to Christ until I was about 25. And, it's one of those kind of things. I grew up, I went to a Catholic church, a school for a number of years. I bounced around. It's kind of like one of those luggages with all the different stickers on it, But I didn't have a relationship with Christ until I was about 25. And so thankfully, my wife was the one who kind of was the driving force that, led me to Christ. And so we didn't have children yet. So that was a great thing that I could start to become more Christ-like before I started influencing my children. And so I started taking that very seriously when I came to Christ, and got involved with serving at church, and became a deacon, and led groups and this and that. And so that broken road, right? It never is a straight line A to B. And so all the things that I've experienced in my life had led me to a place that I think it was about 2016, 2017, a church client that I've known and worked with for a decade asked me to get involved with this men's ministry. And that led me to start with UnCommen. But it was that prior, decade and a half or more that, God was working on me to hone my skills so that He could use them for UnCommen or anything really. Because it was interesting when I first came to Christ, I went to the church that I was attending, and I said, I would love to work on your website. I do this professionally. And they're like, for free, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh, well, no. I'm like, well, you realize you couldn't afford my services in your job, right? And then when I started my business, they became a client for over a decade. I'm like, so you wanted me to charge you? Is that was the holdup? I mean, I could have charged you back then if you want me to, but it's been a good journey. I would say that just like anybody's, it's been disjointed, sometimes broken, sometimes great, but nevertheless with a purpose.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So talk about UnCommen. What is UnCommen? what do you do? What's the goal? If no one knows what in the world UnCommen is, what do you do?
So, UnCommen is a men's ministry that focuses on encouraging and challenging men. So, we get sold to or advertised to over 3,000 times a day as a human. And it is difficult to grab someone's attention. And just like anybody else, men are focused on things.
Yeah.
Women is one. We're one of the top ones. But boats and cars and motorcycles and our job and all these things. And so we wanted to start to develop content around everyday situations that encouraged men. But right after the encouragement, we wanted to challenge them. Sometimes guys need a push, some intense fellowship, a shove, you might say, toward the right direction, accountability. And so I think UnCommen touches on things that maybe other men's ministries don't, like, divorce or porn addiction or communication, things that might fall outside the normal men's ministry, information.
No, that's good. And you know what? My next question to you was going to be, why do you think it's important for us to have that? But I think it's pretty obvious. But the other thing, TJ, some of those are topics that like the church doesn't touch. No. And so why do you think, and it may be obvious, but why do you think the church doesn't touch those topics? And is there a change that's happening there that you see?
Well, from our agency, we can tell that men's ministries struggle because of maybe budgets, volunteers, staff, whatever. So we see that men's ministry is not always at every church, or maybe not even active or thriving. And so when we started to do some of the topics around this, we saw that maybe that may be a solution for a church to use to help their men's ministry. But I do think, pardon me, knowing, a 25, 50 pastors over the years, that some are caught between that we want to reach people, we want to grow the church, grow the kingdom. But if we start to talk about family dysfunction, talk about living together versus being married, we start talking about addictions, it starts to get people get real nervous and may not attend the next week. Let me know when this series is over. I'll come back when love is on the agenda. And so I think we have the ability to create content. Now, we try not to be like, look, we're not trying to offend anybody. When you see me write something, usually I am the guinea pig. I am the reason we're writing about that. And so, I don't see a change in the church kind of topics. I think they're just as serious about spreading the gospel, but I think men's ministries have the luxury of standing on a different kind of box, talking about it.
Got it. That's good. That's good. In all the work that you've done and that you do with men, if someone who's not a part of UnCommen, if they just kind of come by this clip really quickly, what would be a prevailing message that you would have for men? And maybe it's not just one, maybe it's more than one.
Well, it's not going to be a pretty message. It's going to start with, men, we have set the bar too low. I went and found it's either Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Franklin, or Michelangelo gets credited for like every saying across the whole planet. But this one, I think Michelangelo said, he said, the danger of most of us is not setting our aim too high and falling short, but setting our aim too low and achieving it. And so I don't even have to even say, think of someone. We probably can think of probably a dozen men in our lives that have set that bar way too low.
Hmm.
They try to lead their families from the couch, and that is a very difficult position to do it from. And so, uh, we tie our identity to what we do,
Mhm.
the kind of car we drive, the watch, the bank account, all these things. And instead of tying ourselves to be more like Christ, it's these, um, materialistic things and things we shouldn't be chasing. And I think, unfortunately, who suffers for it the most is our wives and our
Mhm.
families.
Hmm. That's good.
And
Now I'm
that's
gonna ask
the
you,
message.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna ask you another one, right? So if that's the message to men and you're working with men closely,
Mm.
then what do you want us to know? What do you want women to know?
That we need your encouragement and support. We need some accountability. Um, I think the stats have always been the wife has taken the kids to church 95% of the time. And I think men struggle when their self esteem is damaged, their ego is bruised from, just like anything, life's difficult, life's a struggle. And men, it's complicated being a guy in today's world. But we have a model and some examples, and we have other men that we should be relying upon. We're big fans of mentoring, having a mentor that's older than you and one that's younger than you. And but from a woman's standpoint, know that there are guys out there that are, working on being men, but there are guys out there who are not, and we need your support, encouragement, and accountability.
Got it. Who are who are those men for you that have been influential that you can look to,
Hmm.
that you can say they've done the work, they've poured into me, or however, who's influenced
Sure. Well, I am a realist at heart, and so I I struggle with having role models because I know that everybody is dealing with something. And so I don't get starstruck with someone. Now, there have been men in my lives that I'm gleaned from. I'm a gleaner by nature, whether it be a writer or a person in my small group, a friend, whoever. I tend to glean from that. But I have what I call anti role models.
you? Mm.
And whether that is a little bit pessimistic or not, I don't know. But I've learned more from men in my life that were horrible examples of men than I ever did from positive role models. Um, because positive role models are great, but they're not Christ, right? They're a flawed person as well. So I can only take a little bit from them, which I try to do. But when you have some person in your life that is an example of what not to be, that seems to be what you learn more from than you do from a positive standpoint. And I'd hate to say that, but
Yeah, I get
my
that.
dad was not a great role model.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people can relate to that, right? Sometimes we rear our families differently, or do things differently just because we're like, "Ooh, I experienced that. I don't want anybody else to experience
Right.
that." So we change, the trajectory of generations,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Um, you talked about, before I asked you this, you talked about how, men need women to hold them accountable. What do you say to somebody like me, TJ, who has been in my situation? You know a little bit about my story, and
Sure.
people who like kind of follow, what I've been doing, know, can catch a little bit about my story, right? Being in difficult relationships, being in abusive relationships, and yet, you hear someone say, "Hey, well, we need women to hold us accountable." But what happens when someone doesn't want to be held accountable?
Sure.
What's the message for people, in those situations, kind of like me, and who maybe written off men, like in whatever capacity?
Right. I would say keep your standards high. Do not lower them to
Mm.
settle for a man.
Yeah.
your Boaz is out there. It just may not be in the right field that you're standing in, right? A different field. And, not all guys obviously are horrible. There are guys out there that are working on becoming more Christ-like, but um, there are women out there who are looking for a godly man. And I do see once in a while videos of the perception of people about finding a spouse. And many times their criteria starts with, well, I'm looking for, this kind of age. He should be fit, um, maybe he shaves his head and he has dimples, but that's a high mark to shoot for. No, um, he needs to make 400,000 a year because I'm comfortable what I'm doing, kind of thing. I think when either one, a man or a woman, set their expectations unrealistically, it makes it difficult. And then when we do not have a right view of ourselves in the light of Christ, we also think that, man, I'm good. But no, you're not good. We're all not good. And so keep your standards high and don't settle.
That's good. I love that. And I was talking even in general, but I think you gave some good pieces there too. Because I will say too, one of the things that was so helpful to me was, we talked about how there are men and people that you don't want to have an example for, but I think it was really important the friends, the male friends around me, people that I could see, because I'm rearing men, boys who will one day become men. So, you know what I mean? Not wanting that bitterness or any of that to be in my heart, and not wanting that for anybody else. And so I think sometimes I would want other people and men to know, like, there are people that's watching, and not just other men. There are women who are watching that are grateful for those who are showing us examples, single moms, other people out there. So yeah.
Sure. I have quite a few friends in our small group that a couple of gentlemen, they're probably 70.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have some friends that are younger, in their probably mid 20s. And I can learn a ton from that person who has experienced more life than I have. And I can even learn something from the person maybe I'm trying to mentor as well. Scares me to death as I grow older. I'm 55, and I don't want to get to that spot where stuck in my ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
I always want to be more like Christ and learn. I'm a life learner type thing. And so I get that too. And so I think it's good to have both sides for every man, because you kind of learn what you think is right. And if you don't know some different perspectives from a godly counsel person, I think you can kind of isolate yourself to a spot where it's not a healthy situation.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And TJ, I mean, believe it or not, I would count you in that. Like, you and I worked together, and the way I would see you show up with joy and make jokes and, talk about Dana, and like, those are all examples, out in the world. And so I consider you in that.
I have a rare blessing that with our agency, it's family, right?
Yeah.
So Dana sits right there.
Yeah.
Every day, she sits right there. She had to get out of the studio while we did. I work 4 feet from my wife every day. We see each other all the time.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a book this morning, and it was saying, try to shoot for speaking to your spouse 90 minutes a week. That is not much at all. It's not much at all.
Right.
We hit 90 minutes before lunch. So it's important to spend quality time together.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, TJ, tell us, we're gonna wrap up. Like, this was good. I know. What's a go-to scripture? Just something that you hang on to.
Well, Studio 490 was based around Matthew 21:22. Peter talking to Jesus about forgiveness. He said, "Should I forgive my brother 7 times?" He said, no, obviously it's metaphorically. No, Peter, 70 times 7. And that's where the 490 comes from, for Studio 490. And so that's kind of my verse right there. But Romans 8:28, as we know that all things God works for good for those who love Him and who have been called according to His purpose. So that's kind of the next one.
I love it. All right, TJ, this is on the spot. As we wrap up, this is the last question. Tell me some of your favorite things about New Orleans. That's how I want to
Oh
end.
my goodness. How much time you have left? Wow. So I worked downtown for, a number of years, probably 15, 20 years. And I'm an explorer. I love going around the town I live in. So my favorite thing in New Orleans, it has to start with the food.
Yep.
I'm a foodie by nature, so it's got to start with the food. And I love eating at places that the tourists don't even know about.
Yep.
About that NOLA life. You come in, you put your beads on, you see the white shrimp boots, and you go home. The places we eat that you probably can't pronounce, looks like the typos in the word. But I think food, I think the culture, I think you and I can kind of look at Charlotte here and say,
Yeah.
wow, it's just I don't have any of that vibe from New Orleans. But I do feel that I miss, I don't know, just the ebb and flow of what we do as a city down there. The festivals, Mardi Gras, crawfish season. It doesn't matter if it's $9 a pound. People love it. So,
TJ, thank you. I appreciate that. Any last comments? It could be you could have something or not.
no, I have two things to do. One, I'd like to encourage all the men listening to visit uncommon.org and get involved. We're there for you. I'd like to encourage all the women listening to encourage the men in your lives to go to Uncommon and get involved. That's how you can help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have the website right there, www.uncommon.org. Y'all check out TJ, check out the ministry. TJ, I love what you're doing, love what you're putting out in the world. And just as a friend, I thank you for just showing up today. And make sure y'all also go ahead and check out renikaspeaks.com. I'd appreciate that. TJ, thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Renika. It's my pleasure.